Interesting article here concerning Damon Hill and his rivalry with Michael Schumacher back in the day. I've actually got a video coming out on the F1Chronicle.com. It depends on the platform you're looking at, whether you will see this video before or after that. But basically going over Damon Hill and all the one-time world champions in Formula One. Of course, Damon Hill became the world champion in Formula One in 1996. And spoiler alert for that video, but I said that Hill is one of the best one-time champions in F1, and had the cards fallen differently, he could have easily won more, particularly in 1994, when the rivalry between him and Schumacher was arguably at its most bitter. But here's an interesting one from the F1Chronicle.com. It says that Schumacher made Hill feel useless and untalented. Let's have a look at this piece. I think this could be quite emotional. Let's have a look at this. So, Damon Hill says the great Michael Schumacher convinced him he was useless. Wednesday was the 30th anniversary of Schumacher's first of a record 7 world championships, achieved when he deliberately crashed into Hill in Adelaide in 1994. Let me just say, as I read out that, I've got goosebumps. Personally, my personal opinion is that I think he did crash into him on purpose. I think it was a very cynical thing for him to do. However, this is something that Schumacher has always vehemently denied, and his fans will also deny that that was the case. But what I will say, before going off on too much of a tangent, is look at what he did to Jacques Villeneuve 3 years later in 1997. He was punished for deliberately crashing into him and trying to take him out of the championship in 97. And in fact, he took himself out of the championship. He's got disqualified. I think you look at that in retrospect to what happened in 94, and I would say that Schumacher did it deliberately. But anyway, that crash took them both out, and Schumacher won the title because of it. Although Schumacher as well, I think he probably was the best driver in 94. He was very unlucky at times too, but let's not go on a tangent with that too much. So, on the anniversary, the major German newspaper Bild asked Hill, the 1996 world champion, to recall their famous title clash and their relationship. Michael and I actually got on well, said the 64-year-old, but on track we hated each other. It was and is not possible to be any other way if you want to become world champion. There was no room for niceties. You have to exploit every weakness of your opponent and wear him down with it. And Hill admits that Schumacher, who sadly has not been seen publicly since sustaining brain injuries in 2013, was the master of psychological warfare. Michael was a master of psychological games, said the British driver. He made me feel like I was useless and untalented, and he told the press that too. Because he's won a lot of races back then, there was no reason not to believe him. However, Hill admits that Schumacher was a very different person away from the track, especially with his own family. Michael was a very competitive but very warm person. So yeah, interesting article there, just going over that. I mean, yeah, the Hill-Schumacher rivalry is one for you guys that don't know, that really defined the mid-1990s. After Alain Prost retired, after Nigel Mansell retired, after Ayrton Senna tragically met his very untimely end at the Imola Grand Prix in 1994. There was a real question of like who would be the new stars of Formula 1, who would be the new world champions. And indeed in 94, after Senna passed away and before Nigel Mansell came back, there was no world champion on the grid. So the floor was very much open. I know Mansell came back later in 94, but for that period before he did, there was no world champion on the Formula 1 grid, which is something incredibly rare through the history of Formula 1. There's not been, that might be the only period in modern history where there hasn't been any. I can't think of another, to be honest. There were 6 world champions on the grid in 2012. That shows you how different things are nowadays. But yeah, it's sad really to hear that, but it's not surprising either, you know. And he was amazing at it, Schumacher, to be fair. He really, really did find a way to destroy his competition. He did it to Damon Hill brutally. He did it to his teammates a lot of the time too. You know, Rubens Barrichello, you think about what Rubens had to go through. Eddie Irvine tried to stand up for himself a little bit in the 90s, and it wasn't quite as clear cut with that. You know, Schumacher tried to do it to Mika Hakkinen, but Mika Hakkinen was just a legend, man. He was the one guy that Schumacher feared. You know, and Schumacher again, he tried to do it with drivers further on, later on in his career, and the way he dominated seasons, the way he just destroyed the competition, I don't think anybody felt it as hard as Damon Hill, you know. I feel like Schumacher, I don't want to say he got softer in his later years because he didn't, but but I feel like he really had something with Hill. There was a real rivalry there between the two of them. But yeah, like I said, both great champions for sure. Schumacher, one of the greatest of all time for sure as well. But yeah, interesting to hear Damon Hill's viewpoint, and I can absolutely believe it. I can absolutely believe that was the case for him. But yeah, guys, what are your memories of Schumacher and Hill in the 90s? Were you around watching Formula One back then? I wasn't. I'm not old enough, basically. I was born in 95, so I was born the year that Schumacher won his second title, the year before Hill won his only world title. What were your memories of the Formula One back then? I mean, I know a good amount about it because I've watched pretty much every single race since the late 70s at some point. I've watched all the old BBC broadcasts. That's how I got into Formula One when I first started watching the sport. I went on the internet and watched every video I could find from the classic F1 and the BBC archives. Back when you could do that back then. You can't do that anymore. It's all behind a paywall on F1 TV or something these days. But yeah, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And of course, we'll be back with some more Formula One news here on the F1 Chronicle very soon, guys. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Ring the bell as well. And have a good one, guys. See you very soon.